What's up, investors? Welcome to another episode of the W.T.F report, bringing you the latest and greatest news that directly impact our financial markets and, more importantly, our portfolios. This week, I'm going to give some updates on the stimulus talks for round 2. I'm going to discuss a little bit of an issue that Uber and Lyft have faced in California, and we're going to talk about something else that Facebook is doing that is more than likely going to get them some more antitrust probes. So, without further ado, my name is Ayan with AQ Markets, and you're watching the W.T.F report. Overall market summary this week is we had the Dow Jones up around 1.2%, we had the S&P 500 around 0.5%, and we had the NASDAQ extremely flat this week. And the recent increases in the stock market have come from the anticipation of the second stimulus package being released. As I mentioned before, their goal was August, and it is definitely not going to be August. They still have some really bad differences, and it has to do with state funding and also funding the United States Postal Service. And a lot of it is just a lot of political drama that I'm not talking about because that is not my job. Now, they're going to be going away for 2 weeks because of the national conventions for each respective party. So looks like the whole August deadline is completely kicked, and it's going to look like we're going to get the stimulus sometime in September if they can set aside their differences. As I mentioned last week, the biggest downside about not passing the second stimulus bill had to do with the unemployed people and the people who really need help in the general public. Fortunately, President Trump signed a few executive orders last weekend that extend the payments for unemployment. So now it's $400 instead of $600 a week, but it's better than nothing. He also extended the student loan deferrals, so now people don't have to pay their student loans in September. It gets extended through December, and it's not accruing any interest again. Along with that, there's going to be a payroll tax holiday from September through December, which means you're not going to be paying around 6.2% on your taxes if you make less than $100,000 a year, and this is the Social Security and Medicare tax that appears on your pay stub, so you're going to be getting more money. However, one thing to note is because you're getting the money now, that means you're not going to get that money on your tax returns next year. So you're basically just getting that money up front as opposed to next year in March and April. And last but not least, he's also going to be taking some federal measures to try to curb the evictions across the United States. So this is overall pretty good. Continuing the TikTok drama, Twitter actually entered the bid to attempt to purchase TikTok. However, it is more than likely not going to happen given the fact that their market cap is around $40 billion and TikTok is more than likely going to be in the tens of billions as far as what it's going to be worth, and they can't afford that, frankly speaking. So it is still looking like Microsoft is going to be the head contender for purchasing this company by the September deadline, but you never know what can happen. Another company might step up to the plate, so I'm going to continue monitoring that. So now Facebook is doing something that is more than likely going to make regulators and antitrust committees very upset. He is going to be introducing his own payment method called Facebook Pay. And remember, if you are an OG fan, on 5/22/2020, my WTF report included Facebook's launch of e-commerce, which is going to allow businesses to basically post pages to sell things, and they're going to be doing it through Facebook. This is going to directly play into that whole scheme because now instead of using PayPal, Venmo, or whatever, they're going to be using Facebook Pay, which saves them a ton of money on fees and allows them to collect even more money on fees for when people are purchasing or selling. They actually poached a ex-PayPal executive, so they have a really good person heading up this whole operation. So we're going to see where that goes. They're more than likely going to face antitrust probes on this, so stay tuned for that. Uber and Lyft are facing some big problems in California, and that has to do with how they are listing the drivers for the companies. As it stands right now, they are contracted workers. They're not employees of Uber and Lyft, which means they don't have to pay benefits to them and they don't have to pay unemployment insurance. Now, that's a lot of money when you take into consideration how many drivers Uber and Lyft have in California. Now, they are currently losing that battle. California is forcing them to list them as employees and thus pay them benefits and everything like that. And what they are now threatening to do is pull out their operations and basically say, fine, we're not going to serve California. But the weird, interesting part here is that Uber might continue doing Uber Eats, which I don't know how that plays into it, but we'll see. And what they're trying to do now is they're trying to pour money into bills and the voters, essentially, to try to have the state of California's residents vote on this issue. So I'm going to monitor that. As you can see, the market reacted very badly to that. They are down 7 to 8%, which is fair because this is a huge impact on their cost of operations if they were to have to pay these people benefits and also pay unemployment insurance. Tesla took notes on Apple and their stock split, and they're going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be doing a 5-for-1 stock split, meaning if you have 1 share of Tesla, it turns into 5 shares of Tesla. And Tesla is my favorite meme stock because any good news just propels this stock to all-time highs. as you can see by the chart, they're up over 14% on that news. The reason, though, is because when you create a stock that is lower in value, more people are able to buy it. So you create this artificial demand for the stock, and that's what led this stock to new all-time highs, because now more retail investors will be able to afford it at $300 around that price, as opposed to $1,500. So continue watching Tesla as the meme stock. Apparently the stock is bulletproof, but one day reality will kick in, and we'll find out when. Do you guys remember Airbnb, when you guys can travel? Instead of going to a hotel and spending $200 at like a Hampton Inn, you can get a nice apartment for $150 that had air conditioning and Wi-Fi and fruit in the table. So Airbnb, they were planning to do an IPO earlier this year. The pandemic hit, and then their bookings plunged like 94%, which is very understandable because one, I wouldn't want to travel, and two, I wouldn't want to go to a stranger's house. But it looks like they're still going to be filing this IPO, which is a very interesting decision considering their initial valuation went around the $30 billion range, and now they're valued at around $18 billion, given their cash flows and everything like that. Now, typically, when companies do IPOs, it's for one reason and one reason only. They need cash. And in this scenario, it feels as though that they're kind of cash strapped, so they're pursuing this IPO in order to float and survive. This could present a really interesting opportunity because prior to the pandemic, this was a relatively profitable and successful company. Now, if this travel demand does pick up, which I personally believe it will, Airbnb should do really well in the long term. So they confidentially filed their IPO. It is uncertain when they're going to be doing it, but it could be postponed to later on in the year just to gain a little bit higher of a valuation once the travel picks back up. Thus concludes this week's episode of the W.T.F report. As always, if there's anything I missed, drop a comment below, let's talk about it. And if you really enjoyed this week's content, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share it with your friends and family. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next week.